you document a particular outcome? So share an example of an outcome and how would you document and then communicate that?
I was a software test engineer at Oracle from 2004 September to 2016 August. And it's a long time span, as you see, 12 years. What is the impact that you're creating? So every year, I was a software test engineer, and I grew in my career. For an engineer, 3 to 4 years is a time period when you get promoted. So I started as a software engineer level 2, then I went on to 3, then 4, and so on. When you get promoted, or when you get a pat on the back from the management, it's important to ask them for feedback. Be it good or be it bad. The feedback that you get from management is what helps you to correct the mistakes and to carry on the correct habits you're developing. As an engineer, you're actually developing habits, knowingly or unknowingly. So that is the kind of impact. What are you saving in terms of budget and in terms of the resources? Resources can be manpower, it can be money, it can be time. That's how the impact is measured.
As engineers, we get into technical details very quickly. And when we think about impact, to your point, there is money involved, there's people's time involved, number of headcount that also plays in there. There's a direct correlation there. And also longevity and sustainability, right? That quickly bleeds into the business side of things. How do you think engineers really connect the dots between engineering marvel as well as business outcomes? Are they the same or are they different?
They are completely different, unfortunately. So engineering marvel, as you know, iPhone is an engineering marvel, and it is also a good business proposition. iPhone is a rare case of where the engineering marvel is also a good business proposition. But there are cases where engineering design and architecture is excellent, but it wouldn't pan out as a good product to sell. So by the time your engineering brain designed the system and sent it out to the product engineering directly scraps it. Because if there is setup and if there is a pre and a post for using your engineering design, then it does not justify bringing out that product to the market, because the amount of time and cost that's involved in pre-setup and post-setup nullifies all the gains that you get from selling the product. Engineering marvel and excellent business propositions are completely different, unfortunately. They are very difficult to have a good engineering design and have an excellent market proposition.
You demonstrate sound understanding of this difference. Curious to know, how did you establish that understanding? And how do you advise someone else to pursue it? And everyone's different.
Okay, let's take the example of ChatGPT, because I've been using it. So ChatGPT as a engineering design product is excellent. It's giving me more information than what I need. It is helping me to understand the language that I'm using. So I am saying, okay, give me some example of a story of a good engineering product, and it goes on to explain what is an engineering product, what do you mean by product, and what do you mean by the product design, what do you mean by product verification, and so on. So it gives a lot of information. So that's a good learning experience for me. But how would you market it as a product? So are you going to say that ChatGPT is just a chatting machine when you don't have a friend or a spouse around? You want somebody to talk to you, and that's what ChatGPT is going to do? Or you're going to say that this ChatGPT is really knowledgeable, it's giving you sensible information, it's giving you, it's always correct, and it's always to the point, it solves mathematical problems, it will give you the time of the day and so on. So what are the user scenarios that you want to attach to this ChatGPT? So that's your key thing. So if you determine, okay, ChatGPT is good in doing one thing and tell it on that one thing, you will succeed. But if you say that this is the one all and be all for everything, then that is destined for failure. Like you can use your iPhone for making calls, for sure. If the iPhone doesn't allow you to call, then it's a failure. And if it doesn't take calls. But it's doing a lot of additional tasks, but that is not what it is sold for. It's a phone in the first place. So it has to receive and make calls at any point of time without any disruptions. So the other apps and the other add-ons that are there on the iPhone are just nice to have. If they don't work, I don't care. But my number is a phone number, so it has to work because that's where I am going to be reached. So having an iPhone that does not make phone call is a failure. But having an iPhone that makes a phone call and does a bunch of other things are extra and nice to have, that's a success.
How do you think professionals are learning and growing where we are right now? Because what we know brought us to where we are. What we don't know is what is needed to take us to the next point. So how are professionals learning and growing these days?
These days, the learning and growing has changed significantly because of online learning platforms. I have used a lot of online learning platforms like Udemy, Coursera, and some of the universities are also providing online courses. There are community colleges that are providing online courses that high school students can take. The learning has become more accessible to everybody. Where we are going with the learning is that the knowledge is universal. Everybody has it. Now the question is, who's going to capitalize on that knowledge and make money out of it? Yeah, everybody knows it. Programming, everybody knows. Management. Now the question is, what are you doing different that for which you are going to get paid? Your working style is also similar to the product that I mentioned. What is the one thing that you do well, and why should I hire you? That's how the employers are looking at you. And if you say, because there are more than 1 million engineers out there, more than 1 million engineers with 10 years, 12 years experience. So how do you differentiate yourself from that group? You must be doing something excellent for which the company should pay you. And you have domain knowledge. So domain knowledge is gaining more and more importance. If you say that I'm very good at cybersecurity and I'm good at cybersecurity's hacker prevention or some specific area in that cybersecurity, then you're valued more. If you just say that I also have the certifications that a bunch of others have, fine. How do you compare yourself again? So going more in depth in one single domain helps you to get hired and to differentiate yourself, and versus doing something because the whole herd is doing that. Right. Where the whole herd is getting a bunch of degrees, getting a bunch of certifications. I think that's a big change that we are seeing.
Are there like 3 or 4 domains that interest you, that attract you towards them?
So coding was one of my passions before, and slowly it morphed into, as I said, looking at the bigger picture. So what are the tools that are available? Moved into tools, and that's how I'm still there in DevOps. I do Kubernetes, Jenkins, CI/CD pipelines, and so on. And that has interested me a lot because there are new tools coming out because of open source, and that area has grown fast. So as I said, if you can differentiate yourself with one tool that you know inside out, that is your biggest selling point. For me, the different domains that I'm thinking is DevOps, trying to learn product, but I'm not there yet.
You mentioned soft skills before. I personally like to call them hard skills. Not because they're hard to learn, hard because they're actually tangible. So what are the hard skills that you think are necessary for professionals these days?
The hard skills are being polite, being kind, establishing a good relationship. That's a good hard skill to have. And also speaking your mind but politely.
How would you define the term assertiveness?
Assertiveness is stating your point emphatically and having reasoning.
And how would you define passiveness?
Passiveness is accepting the speaker's point of view without objections.
Okay. And then on the other end of the spectrum, if I may, what is aggressiveness?
Aggressiveness is bending over backwards to prove your point and making sure that everybody is on your side.
I love this example. So do you mind if I share one example? It's a very simple thing. You go to a coffee shop, you're standing in line, there are 3 to 4 people in front of you, and someone is on their phone, they're lost in their phone, they come and cut in line. What would you tell them personally? What would you tell someone like that?
I would say, I think you have moved into my space. I was here waiting here before you did.
Have you observed people who would, on the aggressive side, actually yell and scream, "Are you blind?" Maybe some cuss words, and you like get back to the something like that. And then on the flip side, have you, if you were like me a few years ago, put my head down and just like avoid eye contact, but be burning inside, right? Those are 2 ends of the spectrum. And I believe like passiveness, one way to describe it is giving importance to the other person's feelings and disregarding your own. By putting my head down, I'm letting them have their way, but I'm burning inside, I'm disregarding my own. Aggressiveness, on the other hand, is giving importance only to our own feelings and disregarding the other person. And that's where assertiveness is in between, where we give respect and command respect. So like you said, being polite, kind, establishing good relationships, if you were to use feelings as a way, or even commanding, or giving and getting respect as a way, that would be assertiveness. So even your sentences formulates in that way. So distinguishing yourself, domain knowledge, some of the hard skills, any of the hard skills that come to mind.
I think being honest is a hard skill.
Non-negotiable, right?
And it's difficult to see through because you believe people at face value, and you only learn later on that something else was brewing there.
Yeah, but I bet you have those scars where you now know how to protect yourselves.
Yeah.
Right? That's definitely the case. How do you protect yourself?
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you protect yourself? You should always have a backup plan. If you think of a hard skill, I think creating a backup plan for every action that you do or every task that you set out to do would be your number one savior. If your main task fails, if you're searching for a job and that's your main task, but what's your backup plan? Do you have a side job? Do you have a side hobby which you can convert into a job? So that will be your savior in case the main one doesn't work. I think having a backup plan is the number one way to protect yourself.
Okay, yeah, very true. I think not everyone has a luxury, but where there's a need, where there's a will, there's a way. Communicating with psychology in mind in an engineering environment is not necessarily easy. But I've noticed the people who are successful repeatedly are the ones who add psychology. And that psychology is really smothered with like the things you said, politeness, kindness, establishing good relationship. And my favorite thing to say is making the other person feel safe. How do you purposefully add psychology to your approaches, especially at the workplace? How do you do that?
I think if you're silent for some time after an event happens, you will bring out the honest emotions of the parties involved. So rather than you giving your opinion first, it might be a good idea to listen to everyone and be the last one to speak. Because when you do the last one to speak action, you are actually tapping into everybody's psychology, getting their ideas out before you make a judgment and you decide on what is the best action to take. So listening more rather than speaking helps you a long way at work.
Absolutely. One of my favorite things to say, which my wife and I share, seek to understand before responding. You can always go 7 layers deep, 10 layers deep, but seeking to understand. I think this is fantastic. I know we're also more or less at the mark. So it's a great conversation, and I got to share and more importantly learn a lot from you.
Sure, sounds good. It was great chatting with you, Suraj. And for a first time meeting, it was pretty good.
Yeah,
Thank you for reaching out.